Hello. I'm going to be talking about the weird overarching pattern I've noticed in the altered states of consciousness I've entered due to my bipolar condition, particularly during mania, um, and the reoccurring, I guess, structure or the structural nature of how I enter into delusional states and somatically altered states rather than audio visually altered states. So like a lot of people when they have like psychosis, they have audio visual hallucinations. Like they'll see like particular things or hear like voices or something. I don't, that's not really the nature of how I experience um, psy- psychosis. I experience, it seems like the recurring pattern is that I experience what seems to be a strong form of what seems to be called idiesthesia, which is a subset of synesthesia, where my pronunciation is terrible. Idiesthesia, idiesthesia, which is a subset of synesthesia, which causes me to experience philosophical concepts as like existential somatic as in like bodily, like I could feel it like in my body, like presence. So one, I guess, philosophical. It sounds pretentious as hell, but I'm not. I'm not shitting. I'm not. No, that sounds like so like stupid. Like what you hallucinate philosophical concepts. Like what the fuck does that mean? Like no, I'm serious. Like so like there's like this is a more recent one, but like so I was in class, right? And I was hearing the chatter of the class, and it was like the chatter, that's like the they from Heidegger. It's like and they're all talking about their projects and the little things they're doing in the run of the mill things that people do, and it's like the they from Heidegger. It's like the things that they do, and I'm talking in it, right? I try to join, and then I realize, wait, I've fallen from my project into the they, and then I said out loud, fallenness, and I felt literally like I'm not memeing you. I felt like I felt literal vertigo, and I felt like I was falling. Like I said fallenness and felt like I was falling. Like it's crazy, but like it all started. I guess I'll get more biographical and try to do the best. So there's two possible origins of my first mania. One's like a concept I felt, which was like a positive one. One was like this like quasi mythic, stupid encounter I had during COVID. The first one was so the concept that was like making me go ecstatic during my mania was this idea that uncertainty and possibility are fundamentally linked. So the fact that I'm uncertain means that I have possibility, which means I'm free. Which was like, whoa. And this was right after I was kind of feeling at my job this sense of extreme alienation from just like working and just feeling like I was reading like articles on science websites about epiphenomenalism and thinking about how like the consciousness is like a byproduct of the body but doesn't affect the body or something. and I felt like, oh, and I began to phenomenologically feel my consciousness like that. Like, I was just like watching myself do work, but I couldn't tell if I was actually doing the work or if I was just watching a show. But like, when I realized the possibility and uncertainty thing, that went away. I just snapped and went away, and I felt like free again. I'm like, wait, I'm a human being. I can do shit. Ooh. So that like was a change in like existential center of my being. I hallucinated an existential paradigm shift that changed my whole perception. Not like in terms of like what I was sensing, like in the particulars. Things that sometimes would get more vivid or more intense. Like there was this moment once where I was drawing, and I was really angry at numbers because they were abstract concepts. Like I was angry that numbers, where people thought numbers were more real than the autonomy over my own body that I could feel immediately. So I remembered this thing that my science teacher said in high school, where he said like, oh, if you take one bubble and take another bubble, you get one bubble if you put them together. And I like drew the two bubbles going together, but like when I drew them, it was in such a continuity and flow that it was like I was animating in real time. It looked like how like an animation would look on a screen, but I was drawing it in real time, and it felt like animated in real time. Like that's how like in sync I was in the moment. Like totally crazy feeling. The other more scary thing was I thought I was challenged by the ghost of Sartre in a park to walk into nothingness. So it was COVID, so everyone was wearing masks, and I walked in the park, right, and I was walking in the park, and I felt like, wait, I'm walking into nothingness, and I felt like Sartre was there in the nothingness saying, keep going farther. Can you walk farther in the world, in the nothingness, and affirm your being or whatever? So I kept walking down the nothingness and was in this surreal state of it was just the same park I'd always walked down, but it felt like I was walking into oblivion, like nothingness. Like I wasn't seeing anything besides what I was ordinarily seeing. Like it wasn't like a visual hallucination or like an auditory. It was like a delusion plus the whole existential like vibe or mood. If you want to be like Heideggerian, like I referenced high earlier, like the mood, like the whole that inframes the totality of my experience shifted in such a way that that like it felt like I was walking into nothingness. So I kept walking down this park, and as I walked, I felt and saw these people in masks. I thought they were like ghosts choosing to resign into nothingness of their own will. And I was like, okay, these old people choosing nothingness. But then I saw they had dogs with them on leashes, and I'm like, hey, that's not cool. They're like choosing the resignation for other beings or whatever. So they're choosing for other beings to like resign for them. And that made me angry, and I was like grabbing at them and like rah, 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 at the park, getting all angry. And that eventually made me turn back in the park. And when I got out of the park, the world felt real again, because I was stuck in this kind of like, I guess sort of like deep uncertainty about reality at the time. Like I was always very scared of things not being real. like the epiphenomenals that we were talking about earlier, and I was like, when I got out of the park, I like said everything felt tangible and real again, because because like the same place I was out of there when I walked out of the park as when I walked into it was still there. And it was like, whoa, things were real. And that was cool, but I was acting wild. I thought I was talking to the ghost of, I didn't see the ghost of Sartre. I didn't hear like a voice. I just like felt like, oh, there's nothingness there. Sartre must be challenging me. And then I felt like I walked into the nothingness. And everything felt like a hazy nothingness. And then I walked out after I got angry and said, no, I won't let you bring the dogs into the nothingness, man. And then I walked out of the nothingness. And the world was there. So that was cool, I guess. But the point is, I hallucinate. I don't usually hallucinate, or I think I really ever. I maybe hallucinate at the level of just like a particular thing. Like I see like a little vision, or like hear a sound. Usually, from what I can tell, my whole framing of the world changes, and that changes my like existential and somatic, like bodily feeling of what the world is like. And that is wild. There was some other weird like experiences. Like I had a lot of ecstatic experiences after that. Like I would listen to a lot of anime openings, like the Dragon Ball GT opening, Dandan Kokoro Hikariteku, and cry tears of love for all humanity, or whatever. Like over and over again. Like over and over and over again. It was kind of crazy, and I was blaring it super loud. It was really obnoxious. Like I was just blaring on my TV, Dandan Kokoro Hikariteku, and a bunch of other anime songs really loud. And feeling like crying, just overwhelming tears of love for all humanity over and over and over again. There was another experience I had where I had this was back when I had like an Xbox One on a TV, and I was like searching up a picture of Nietzsche on like the search engine. And when I looked at the picture of Nietzsche, I had this like weird existential framing that like this I wasn't seeing Nietzsche beside the picture, right? I wasn't like hearing a voice per se or anything like that, no. But I had this existential framing that as long as I see Nietzsche, Nietzsche still existed as like this combined subject-object existence, and that he was actually in a higher state of existence where he existed in the pure peace of being a pure object of my spectation, but continued on as a pure image of beauty or something, but like but combined in the subject-object of my ecstasy of me seeing him, and I like cried tears of joy of me seeing like Nietzsche on the screen and just looking at him and like crying or whatever, and just like seeing like and feeling like he was there just by me seeing him, not like in the room, like I don't know, it's both literal and metaphorical. Like it was hard to describe. It's like very like if you didn't feel it, you wouldn't understand. But like by just looking at Nietzsche, and I just felt he was there, but not like an image, like not well besides the image I was seeing, but not like I was like seeing an apparition of Nietzsche, or like I felt like someone touching me, or like I heard a voice. It was like the very presence of me seeing was like my seeing of Nietzsche was the same Nietzsche seeing himself through me seeing him or something. What's that Meister Eckhart quote about the God that sees me is the same God for which whatever the fuck. Yeah, it's like that, but like it's just me looking at a picture of Nietzsche, and he felt like I resurrected him by just looking at him. And I cried tears of joy. I think, yeah. And the other one, I don't know when it happened. Was these are all in my first Mania, by the way. These are first ones. I'm going with the next one. I'll talk about was this cool, overwhelming, windy feeling in my chest. I don't know what it caused it. It was just like this. It's really blurry. I just know that I had it, and it was like super overwhelming. Like I just had this overwhelming, windy feeling of peace in my chest, just going all like windy. And I was just like, peaceful that was like overwhelming, and I was scared I was gonna get lost in it. I was like calling my sister about it. I was like, how do you handle these spiritual states? You're more spiritual than me. And she's like, I know how to handle them. And I was like, oh. And I just got kind of worried about how like peaceful it is. That it was so peaceful and windy and cool that it was like overwhelming and scary, but also kind of pretty beautiful and peaceful. Yeah. Next one, I'll talk about the politics one, the revolutionary ecstasy, psychosis. Yeah. So I like had this. This was pretty delusional. I like misread like an article about like someone cutting aid to something for something else. I'll be vague. For a famine, and that made me so angry, like in a way that I've never felt anger in my life before that point. Except maybe with the dogs in the park I just mentioned earlier, and it was like could feel like from the draining of like the money from the America to from the resources going to the famine to America, from how I misread the article, that I could feel that money like killing like individual children or whatever. Like I could like it felt like I could like it felt like I could feel like a death hitting me, like, and it was like just visual, and I was just like screaming, "Yeah, son of a bitch!" I can't like do it, but like, I was like screaming, like in this visceral, all of my being, anger, and I went and like took my sketchbook, wrote some weird protest thing about it, and went to the job I worked at and like protested about the famine thing at the job I worked at, which was a Pizza Hut, and was like crying, ecstatic, tears of joy, freaking people out, singing about how you're not a puppet, and like singing the Dragon Ball GT opening again, and eventually people came to take me in. I remember like I was telling the people that came for me, they said, "Oh, you can do whatever you want. You can go home. You can stay here. You can do what you want. You have free will." I was so ecstatic that like at the idea that like I was finite, like I was like I forgot things, like I was ecstatic that I was not a god. Like one of the most things I was excited about most in the protest thing was that like I was just a person making a decision at like an individual level, and that I was not a god. Like I said, like that's so amazing. I can forget things. That's awesome. Like I was just like excited that I could forget things because it made me feel mortal and finite. And it made the world feel real and tangible. Like I wasn't just like a ghost in a void, which is one of my recurring fears, I guess, in my psychoses. That I'm just going to be like a solipsistic ghost in a god void or whatever, just talking to myself endlessly. But I was like ecstatic, talking about like like telling the people coming from me, like saying, no, you can go home, you can do whatever you want, you have free will, you can do whatever you want, you can have free will. I was like, and they seemed like they kind of like shook them with like, I was like excited about forgetting and stuff, and telling them what they can, instead of telling them what to do, I said they could do whatever they want or whatever. Yeah. So they took me in, and I felt like this is when I got really delusional, and because I couldn't figure out what was going on, because the way they were reacting to me was like, so like, not like harsh, that I thought like there was like gonna be some like bigger thing going on than there was, which was because of my mania and the thought spirals and stuff. So I thought I was actually turning gears in history and actually bringing news about the famine out or whatever. But they were actually just taking me into inpatient. But I felt so like completed by this action of like doing something of my own will, of just like saying, I'm gonna do this now, I'm gonna do something. That I just like, that I felt like so ecstatically complete that I felt like I could disappear or die at that moment and it would like be okay. Like it was that like, except I had like this huge painful rash on my leg, but I was like not looking at it because I was scared I was actually bleeding on my leg or something, and that I was dying and they were just gonna let me die or something. But because I was so ecstatic, I didn't care. I was like, yeah, I'll just bleed out and die and it'll be okay. That's, mania and feeling of teleological completion from like doing like your deed of whatever, feeling of fulfillment in doing a deed or whatever. Then they put me in restraint in a confinement room. That was very, very traumatic. It wasn't that long. They had a TV there, but I was so delusional that I thought the TV was sending me like government messages or something. I guess that was like more conventionally delusional, but like, but it wasn't like because I was hearing like government saying things. I was making the narrative in my head myself. I wasn't hearing it externally. So this may be like a difference between like, I don't know, like a lot of people that like paranoid about the government that like hear things. Maybe I'm wrong, but like I think like a lot of people when they're having psychosis, they'll like be hearing external forces that are making them think, like external like hallucinations that convince them into like this. I was convincing myself by overthinking everything, really fast. So I was just building a narrative in my head, this whole mythos of me in my head, and just overthinking everything in this weird way that didn't make any sense, that it could have been read in a more simple way. So like, yeah, and eventually I kept trying to get out of the room, because like I remember like before I was trying to get out of the room, I was like hypnotized looking at the person in the other room. I was like I'm trapped here, and I was talking in this weird overly calm way. I was like, I'm trapped with you, like an alien or something. I was saying like, I'm trapped with you and you're trapped with me, and we are trapped together because you have to look at me and I have to look, you have to look at me and I have to look, and we are trapped together by this pairing or whatever. And it was like this weird like thing where I was like seeing like being together was like trapping us both, like by them having to watch me, and I was like pointing it out, and it was just going like, and the guy was just like kind of nervously nodding, going like, yep. And I was like, and it was like, eventually I kept trying to break out of the room, like, but they had like five, like I don't know how many, a ton of people like hold me down at every angle, and they felt like, because I was so like restricted at every angle, it felt like the universe contracting around me. Well, it was really just a bunch of people contracting around me, but I felt like the universe, because I was like creating this narrative in my head. And I felt like, then I moved to the idea that, wait, I must have been sealed in hell for what I did or something like that, or something. And I kept doing that. There was one thing I won't get into there because it's a bit sensitive. It's all pretty sensitive, but eventually they put me in restraints in the middle of the room, and this was probably the most restrained I've ever felt, was being in the middle of this room in restraints. But they put me in restraints in the middle of this room, and I felt like I was at the edge of nihilism itself or something, like at the end of the universe. And I remembered Nietzsche's idea of amor fati, the love of fate. And I was like, it was my job as like the overman to like affirm fate at the edge of nihilism, at the edge of like the restraints, and say like amor fati, love of fate. Actually, there was a earlier point in the psychosis where I drew like amor fati on my face with marker, like the Nietzsche love of fate thing. Yeah. Then there was another scary. Later there was like I got put in an inpatient. I'll skip over that. I went through various fluctuations. My psychosis eventually became extreme anxiety, and there was this moment where I felt like where it snapped. Later, in between, there were other actually weird moments. Wait, I just remember another one where like these are even more out there. Like I was a moment where I thought I was like seeing YouTubers. That was weird. They're not seeing them, but like I was gonna go see YouTubers at an airport that I never even talked, because there wasn't like anyone, like I wasn't like, here's the thing, when I say like, oh, I'm seeing, like you really think, oh, like you heard like a vision or something. No, I just like persuaded myself to think that by hyper reasoning, like jumping to weird conclusions. Like it was just weird. It was just like malformed reasoning operating at a hyper intense speed. It wasn't that I was like encountering a bunch of weird visions and voices or something. It was just that like I was like I was just like totally over operating on my own internal narrative and stuff. But like there was one moment where I was like, there's a moment with, I think I'm gonna skip over that because it's all kind of vague. I don't know where it lines up, but I'll skip to the most scary moment I've had during psychosis or period, I guess, where it's like I internalized the idea. There was a moment where like I consciously internalized the idea about desire from like antinatalism and Buddhism, that desire is suffering or something. And instead of feeling that as just an abstract observation, I just felt the restlessness of reality snap into just pure suffering because of my anxiety. And I just entered this horrible hellish state of like the samsaric hellish state where every moment everywhere I moved, I felt like my being, my soul, whatever you want to call it, was running out of my body in place, but staying there no matter where I went. So every action felt like an inaction because of the fruitlessness of desire. So I just internalized the suffering of the world. The idea, I just like ontolog, because of, that ties into the whole in framing, where I hallucinate the whole rather than the part. Like where I inframe the existential reality, where I experience the existential reality of desire is suffering, where I just felt like the fruitlessness of like movement and restlessness at like the most fundamental like level. And I just felt like no matter what I did, like everywhere I moved, like I felt like not moving. Like if every like desire like had collapsed into suffering in the pure sense. And that was terrifying. And eventually after that I just got anhedonia and blah blah blah. Second psychosis. I was developing this bunch of a weird metaphysic called a weird metaphysic where I was like worried about like after being worried I was either gonna fall into endless organization or endless process or disorganization. And I then looked for weird synchronicities to try to affirm it. And eventually my synchronicities were intercepted by someone playing a math game in a Discord call. And because of this weird math RPG game with like weird wild geometry. And the wildness of geometry made me feel like I was seeing Cthulhu and like the endless abyss of the cosmos or whatever. And like the endless incoherence and abyss of the cosmos. And I went to talk to my friend about it. And she talked about dimensions, made me more scared. And then she jokingly said, maybe I'm the devil, as a joke. And in framing state, I heard the word devil, and I couldn't like take a joke, and I literally metaphorized it. I didn't see a devil, I didn't hear or smell anything, but I just took a metaphor literally, and it inframed my entire being. And I said, "I'm in hell," and I started screaming, "I'm in hell! I'm in hell! I'm in hell!" Running up the stairs. And eventually I saw my mom up there, and I went to hug my mom, and she said, and until the hell feeling went away, it was like the hell feeling was like a burning feeling, but not like a heat burning feeling. It was like just burning of my being. But not like heat. I don't know how to explain it. If you haven't experienced it, then you wouldn't know what it felt like. But like it was just like my entire being was just being consumed. It wasn't like heat, but it wasn't like it was like it was inframed in a hellish state of being. But when I went and hugged my mom, and it said like it felt like I felt like the hell feeling eventually went away. And then I jumped up and screamed, "Love is real," which scared the shit out of her, which is very understandable. That's about as notable as the second psychosis. Third one. Gosh, what do I... There's like synchronicities. I don't actually, I mean, there's like this weird synchronicity I remember during my second psychosis, but I don't try to remember how to remember like my whole in framings. Like, what happened? It was pretty recent. It's like earlier this year. I think you get the idea. So, basically, all I wanted to do here was describe a couple of my intense, altered states of mind during manic psychosis, and the reoccurring theme of it, which is, again, the idiesthesia thing, where I hallucinate like a whole in the framing of my experience. I may have just asserted that more than describing it. I don't know if I you got the idea just from me describing the events. I hope you got that idea across. I hope I didn't. It was maybe a bit apophatic sometimes because I was like saying, "Well, this is not what was happening." I wasn't like seeing this or hearing this, blah, 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 blah. But basically, I have these intense philosophical moods that frame like my manic experiences. And there's one more positive experience. I don't know when it happened. This happened during various. This happened recently too, I think. There's this experience I have during Mania sometimes where everything feels extremely vivid in a tangible way. There's another thing I should have described when I got out of the. When they put me right out of the. When I got out of the psych. Not the confinement room or whatever at the hospital before they put me in inpatient. But like I'll do that. So there's this positive feeling I get during Mania where everything feels super vivid down to its last detail. And like sensory wise, like when I drink like a soda, I can feel like the individual chemicals, like from the planet, like going down my throat, and the individual temperatures and like continuity with it, and like I can feel like pressing against my throat, like this full holistic material continuity of energy or something. And it's like really cool because like I feel like tangible and real, and everything feels vivid and cool. So I like that. The way I framed that at the time was naturalism, that everything was nature and stuff. So I was like naturalist. That was my naturalist philosophical framing of the whole at the time, where I somatically experienced things as nature. And nature was like things being tangible continuities of energy. The thing that happened though after I was taken out of the confinement room was that like there was this gradual transition from like feeling super compressed and anxious and stuff and like tightened and scared and stuff to like feeling so like evened out and like I guess it's quasi ego death state, I guess, where like it felt like my face had merged with the air. Like that's the best way I can describe it. Like the air and the in my face and my hair were all like in one continuity, but like in like a more passive way than like with the soda. It was like this cold, like peaceful, like I was just like this in this like relaxed state of like, oh, like I popped or like was released in this like ego death state or something. So yeah, that was probably due to trauma, but like yeah, but those were my like some of my wild psychosis experiences and the idiothesia way I kind of frame them and understand them. So thank you for listening, everybody, and have a nice day.